So great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about how SQL Server 2016, the newest version of SQL Server, just released, I can still say this month for another few hours, impacts world-class data organizations. And I am Rachel Martino. I am a principal consultant with Pragmatic Works. I look forward to working with you on projects, helping your salesperson to scope and define how Pragmatic Works can help you with your solutions. I want to start by just spending a couple of moments, not a lot, defining what is a world-class data organization. A world-class data organization is an organization that is deliberately oriented towards and founded on a data culture. So this means that world-class data organizations understand how to use data to create value for their companies. In a data-centric culture, world-class data cultures realize the value of data as an asset and transform the company by building an organizational culture around data. Employees in world-class data organizations use insights that are provided by the data that is available to them in their everyday work. This means that they have insight into decision-making processes, which is one of the firm's most basic competitive tools. In order to ensure that employees have this insight, they have to be provided with access and an understanding of the context and the ramifications of their decisions. So the provision of corporate data to those employees enables them to quickly, on their feet, while they're in the midst of making a decision, access information around the context within which the decision is being made. And this may be as small of a decision as, who needs to be contacted to address this issue, or it may be a bigger decision around how do we plan for this operational activity, or what should our strategy be related to a certain product. The better decisions these employees are able to make, the more powerful is the company's ability to create leverage in the market. In order to take advantage of data in this way, the company needs to make provisions for providing that information and keeping it current and making it usable in a usable state. But employees need modern skills as well. They need the ability to understand what they're seeing. They need the ability to understand the meaning behind the information shown to them in maybe a dashboard or a report. These organizations have a focus on value. They prioritize their decisions and their initiatives based on a return on investment for those initiatives. ROI is understood for these decisions based on previous experiences. These have been captured in the data assets of the firm. Many firms have history, in some cases going back a long way, that explains what activities were undertaken and what were the ramifications of those activities. This provides the experience documented in the data. It enables these companies to create intentionality around the data, the platform and tool choices of how to provision data to their employees, and how to use that data to define value. Smart companies seek insight, realizing that this is the only way they're going to become leaders in their industry. They need to look ahead and innovate their way to the top of their industries. And in order to do that, takes insights delivered at the right time in the right context. Employees in these smart companies use data to make discoveries and to add to organizational knowledge based on their business expertise and their understanding of the data and the data environments. It's important to be able to turn data into value for the company. A lot of people have data, but they don't all follow a process that allows them to leverage that data into insights. Data is not always treated with respect. Frequently it's difficult to get to. It's unreliable when people do have access to it, or they're not certain whether or not it is reliable, or it's not in a usable format. So it's possible that people can get to it, but what they get is a PDF report that is not searchable, doesn't provide the totals that they need. A lot of issues with some of the standard reports that are delivered in the form of decision-making help these days. Leverage is the ability to use one thing to create exponential effect on another thing. Creating leverage is not about building platforms and serving data to your users. It's about the entire organization using data to solve problems before they occur, to predict business trends and to create patterns of sustainable insight. So there's an intentionality necessary to leveraging your data in order to address problems. And in problem solving, we're able to begin to investigate various issues or concerns or challenges or opportunities, and by doing that, predict trends, where we should go next, or where is the market going next? Perhaps what kind of operational improvements do we need to make to be ready for the next big thing, whatever that might be. These insights into trends provide the company with the advantages to make sure that they're operating efficiently, to make sure that they're ready for what comes next. One example of this that I was exposed to recently is a company that has been for many years tracking phone logs and workflows, but recently they were able to start putting that information together and exposing that to managers, and managers were suddenly able to see in the phone log layover on top of their workflow some issues related to training needs, be able to better define goal tracking related to phone calls to per workflow activity, and in general suddenly there was this opening into a better understanding of the impact of changes in their wider industry, maybe regulatory changes, and how that impacts their service levels, how that impacts the number of phone calls necessary to execute a workflow task. Taking data and integrating it across your firm can give you insights into things that maybe you were unaware were issues, but perhaps moreover someone had an inkling of it but wasn't able to specify or document that. These are the problem-solving techniques that lead you to the ability to predict trends. Why do we say that data is the most valuable asset in our organization? We say this because data unites ideas across an organization. And the process of providing data to the organization can lead us to defining common communication definitions and concepts for an organization. It is not an uncommon situation for an organization to have multiple definitions of various calculations that they use. For example, profit. And coming to an agreement on what we mean by this particular data element, or an understanding that this is how this is calculated, therefore you can be confident that the information that's provided in our system has been validated against this particular rule, let's say, business rule. It enables the communication of ideas across the organization in a way that one-off distribution of a report perhaps might not. So we're talking about organizing your information at a very fundamental level. And then when you do that, the value of your data grows exponentially. The more it is understood and the better it is used, the more valuable your data becomes. Data needs to be accessible. If it is an accessible asset of your organization, then everyone can use it for decision-making processes. Everyone should have access to your data. Data is flexible. The same data item can be part of many different stories. Determining a particular performance indicator doesn't necessarily mean that that value can't be used anywhere else. The same piece of information can apply to multiple decision-making processes, and in doing that, you're leveraging the value of that data. It also accelerates the process of making decisions. People become faster to make decisions when they have the visible context in front of them and the indicators that are necessary to make a selection or a choice, and they're far more confident. They're able to come back and say, this decision was made based on these criteria, and here they are demonstrated, and we all agree that these are the criteria for making this decision, and we have all agreed that this data is as it should be. It is valid. It is our accurate calculations. When you put all of these things together, data becomes an enabler for your organization. So let's talk about how SQL Server 2016 features can impact the ability of our organization to adopt a data culture. In a world-class data organization, all employees use data for decision-making processes, all of them. One feature of SQL Server 2016 that can enable this is the in-memory transactional processing capability that enables us to load certain reference information into in-memory data store, and that fast data access in our transactional system enables, first of all, faster transactions, 30 times faster, but at the same time provides such fast lookups that we can use them for quick analysis during those transactions, like this commonly used example of real-time fraud detection. We have clients that are testing significant improvements in their transactional systems and looking to perhaps even Windows Server 2016 capabilities when they'll be able to push past the current RAM limitations. But with SQL Server 2016 and the ability to put more transactional tables into RAM, this will become a more common and effective way of doing quick analysis, real-time detection. In memory operational analytics, enables query and reporting improvements of up to 100 times. And that provides us with real-time reporting that we were simply not able to execute before. Now those real-time reports can be generated on volumes of data that were at the frequency that was just not reasonable in the past. R integration and advanced analytics directly in your SQL Server in SQL Server 2016 has enabled companies to achieve business goals through data science. Businesses that are founded on data science or businesses that integrate data science and analytics into their decision-making processes are finding considerable speed improvements. And because of the rate at which these kinds of businesses operate, this can have a significant impact in profitability for these companies and their ability to update their analysis as quickly as possible. In a world-class data organization, employees know how to use their data. And there are a number of tools in SQL Server 2016 that make this much more reliable and much more accessible environment. One of those is row-level security. In this image you can see that this nurse is running a query, and that query, even though it would normally pull back every single patient, because there's a security policy at the row level on that table, this particular nurse is allowed only to see patients from their wing of the hospital or from their department. Giving application developers the ability to rely on database structures for managing this type of security enables them to provide simpler applications to their users and enables users to have closer, more direct access to their data. Updates to reporting services in SQL Server 2016 are significant. There are a number of improvements at the what I will now refer to as a dashboard level, at a portal for reporting that makes it much more accessible to employees and allows it to deliver them with more direct value than seeing a list of the reports that they have rights to view. Now they not only see what they have rights to view, but they also have view directly to their current KPIs and quick access to dashboards in addition to traditional reporting formats that we've had access to in previous versions of SQL Server reporting services. There are a number of other improvements to the SQL Server reporting services environment, and especially related to the integration of SQL Server mobile reports and their ability to make clear in a dashboard indicators and a quick analysis of data and information that employees need. Knowing how to use your data may mean going beyond applications or pre-created reports or KPIs. It also means self-service and the ability to, I'm going to use the word again, leverage that self-service to get access to insights about your data and begin to do your own discovery in your data. One example of that is quick insights provided by Power BI. And the report that you see here shows some quick analysis that was generated when a published Power BI solution was had quick insights applied to it on the Power BI portal. And for the employee, this means that they can begin to see patterns in data with very little effort. A world-class data organization's data is accessible to the employees. And there are a number of tools built into SQL Server 2016 to enable that functionality. One is the temporal table, which demonstrates that, this image demonstrates the temporal table capability of moving information from your tables into a history table and time tracking that history table without writing custom code. This is done within the database itself, and it's a feature that is defined on the table. And from that point forward, as queries are run against the temporal table, if the employee who is running the query is looking for current information, actual information, it'll come directly from the temporal table. But without writing any special queries, without making any specific changes to the way the question is asked, except for saying that I do not want current data, I want something from, let's say, 1999, now the database system itself, it understands that that information is historical information and needs to be fetched from the history table. Stretch database is another feature that enables moving data yet keeping it accessible. For very large data sets and those that may incorporate some of what we might consider cold or archival data, it's still important to employees to be able to access that information when they need it. They just may not need it all the time or as frequently as they need current information. Temporal table can help with this, but the history table and temporal table is still on your local data storage. In the case of a stretch database, you can move that cold data storage out to Azure, taking it off your local infrastructure and providing yourself with some space recovery in your local infrastructure. When that information is called upon that has been moved out to cold storage, then it is pulled without making changes to the application or the call for data. And there is a threshold before which that data is set. It's actually, it depends on your choice of syntax on how you want this to work, but as data, there's a trickle of data to that cold storage as it reaches that threshold. Dynamic data masking is another way of making data accessible to your employees that otherwise you might have to hide or encrypt. The image that you're seeing now shows 3 different data values that may represent privacy concerns within an organization. By defining policy on this table, this administrator has been able to define a mask on the Social Security number, email, and salary columns. And in doing so, has defined that any other login besides themselves will be seeing the masked values, and those masks can be customized. And you can see that in the cases the Social Security number, it is still formatted as a social. It is still visible in that format, but the last two digits are visible. That's customizable. The email format is very similarly presented as if it were the email address, except certain characters are marked out. In the case of salary, the salary has had another function applied to it, and in this case, the salary is randomized so that employees cannot infer information about the salary from the masked information. Another more literal take on the term accessible is the ability to access data and information in a dashboard format using mobile report services. Through mobile BI, we have the ability to present to our users highly usable and functional dashboards in multiple formats, in a computer view screen size format, or one might even consider that a wall display style format, or in a tablet format, or in a small handheld device format like a cell phone. And what you're seeing here is two different views on the same report for two different devices. And the views are interactive, and choices made in the funnel there will affect what you see in your line graphs. Choices made in the time navigator across the top that shows all time last year, this year, or year to date will filter the data that is represented in the funnel and in the graph below. This is a built-in capability. As you define a dashboard in mobile report builder, then at the same time you are able to build out a tablet view and a cell phone view of that information. It's all part of a single report. A world-class data organization values their data as an asset of the firm. An Azure data lake is one example of the extension of capabilities that we now have for doing this. Many organizations are aware that they have a considerable amount of valuable information stored in formats that were previously not considered data. They were considered unstructured formats of one kind or another and were not accessible for analysis or other kinds of integration with the structured data that the firm possessed. There's an awareness that the value in that information, if only it could be stored and accessed, would improve an analysis of our structured data. The data lake store provides a place where that information can be captured and housed, and capabilities of the systems that you see listed on the far right, SQL Server Polybase, some of the real-time analytics tools, machine learning, and then using something like Polybase or Azure Data Factory to incorporate that information into a data warehouse can enable, excuse me, let me go back a bit. Using those tools to extract data values from those unstructured data artifacts can allow you to begin to combine that with your structured data and execute analysis on it. part of valuing something as an asset is making sure that you are protecting it to the best of your ability. Azure is an extremely secure environment, but SQL Server 2016 has some improvements in security as well. It's been redesigned from the ground up with security in mind and provides some constructs like always encrypted that enable an increase on particular data elements' ability to keep those private and secure. In this image we can see that this is a part of an image about always encrypted that shows the data is encrypted at rest in the database. The data is also encrypted when it is transferred back to the client requesting it. There is a required encryption key that when provided by an application on the receiving end of the data is the only way to decrypt that information. So the information is encrypted in the database, and the information is encrypted when it is traveling. It is not decrypted until it reaches its destination, if the privileges are properly configured and intact. And another major aspect of treating data as an asset of the organization is providing it to your employees in a usable form. We've talked a bit about SQL Mobile Report Publisher, but this Power BI dashboard demonstrates the capability of that tool to pull information from multiple reports into a single interface that is accessible by employees when they're looking for that decision-making context. A dashboard is especially useful in the context of determining where someone's attention is needed, but can also help with seeing connections between various information types and different perspectives on information as well. So you can see that there is a regional load graph represented in this dashboard, as well as a gauge representing the expense on a flight, as well as a map of where do on-time arrivals take place. Each of these is a different perspective on the efficiency of the airline that is making this travel analysis. A world-class data organization is focused on increasing speed to insight. We talked about the fact that insight is the objective and it is the outcome of problem solving. We've talked about how a data lake can enable us to aggregate forms of data we weren't able to aggregate before, but it can also provide an input mechanism for data, and then it can be leveraged. You see data warehouse is circled here on the far right. It can be leveraged to take advantage of the parallel processing capabilities in Azure for Azure Data Warehouse to very quickly incorporate that information using powerful processing expanded capability during the extract, transform, and load process to incorporate your data quickly into your decision-making tools. The query store is almost a literal interpretation of increasing speed to insight. The objective of the report that you're looking at here coming out of the query store, out of your database, is to show the duration of queries and how they are being executed within your database. The query store brings together functionality that previously was not built into SQL Server, and a lot of people were using other tools to access. Everything built into SQL Server means that query store is native to the tool, is accessible for anyone who has the rights to use it on the database, and is part of the licensing of SQL Server. And it's a powerful tool for comparing plans and for reviewing performance of various queries, finding your longest duration queries, and addressing those by forcing particular plans to execute within the database. Going back to Power BI for a minute, I believe that one extremely useful tool to increase the speed to insight is the natural language query. The natural language query capabilities in Power BI expand the use of Power BI beyond the dashboard and the canned reports that have been prepared by the builder of the solution, and enables an employee who knows how to use the data to get access to quick ad hoc queries against the information. All of these tools together enable employees to have the context for making their decisions at their fingertips while they're working during the day, providing opportunities for insight. World-class data cultures realize the value of their data as an asset, and they transform their company by building an organizational structure around their data. Employees in these companies use these insights in their everyday work. I know I've gotten to the end about half an hour, 40 minutes into our talk. We have some time now. I would be interested in insights or comments if they've come in on these topics that we've been discussing, or some insight into how people are using these tools within their own organizations to build a data culture. So I don't know, I don't see anything in the chat window. Let's see, maybe.
Hey, as of right now, Rachel, we don't have any questions.
Okay, all right.
So we'll give it just a couple minutes to see if anybody has any questions, and then if not, we'll give them back 20 minutes of their time. All right, here we have some coming in. Let me read those off to you. When will we get on-prem Power BI and SSRS?
I don't have the answer to that question. I suspect that you know this given the way you asked the question, but one of our partners, Pyramid Analytics, has provided a Pyramid Analytics server solution that enables on-prem publishing of Power BI solutions. But we have seen from Microsoft that they are going to be including that in SSRS, but I do not know the date for that.
Okay, how can we query the data lake?
So you can query a data lake using Polybase, and that enables you as well to query it as if it were a table and access the make joins between your structured data and your unstructured data.
Okay. Can you give us MROPE details on temporal tables?
Could you state the word before details again? What was that? Can I give you?
It says MROPE. Maybe they might have said it wrong. We'll come back to that one.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see what else we got. Does SQL Server 2016 allow Power BI to use natural language and quick insights into tabular SSAS models?
I'm interested that you asked that question. I am not aware that it doesn't. And so I would say yes, but truth be told, I have not done it myself. And not having done it myself, I'm sometimes a little suspicious of things like that. So I apologize for not knowing for sure, but I believe that it does.
Okay.
I will find that out and post that when we post the slides.
If we have that pyramid analytics server, then would that architecture be enough to deploy Power BI reports with the organization?
Would that be enough to deploy Power BI reports within the organization? That was the question?
Yes.
All right, sorry, I was jotting down the other question. Yes, that would enable you to deploy the Power BI solutions internally.
Okay. Someone wants to know if there is an area where SQL Server 2016 is lagging.
Lagging.
I guess if there's some improvements that they haven't made in 2016 that, we would expect, or...
Well, I think that probably the very first question identified one of the needs for 2016 that a lot of people are extremely eager to see, and that is the ability to publish Power BI on premises, and that there are continual updates to the Power BI environment. So we expect as well that there will be continued improvements in the SQL Server reporting services environment. I know that a newer version of Report Builder has become accessible within the last month, etc. So I think that there are some features that were originally announced that are still coming, but I'm not aware of any sort of gotcha out there on using this tool in general.
We have a question about temporal tables, and someone wants to know what the possible uses for them are.
So I've been in application development for longer than I care to say, and multiple applications that I've had to build have needed to look backward in time to see the state of transactions or customer addresses, or do some sort of regional analysis based on, for a past period, based on a location of a business or of a customer. And executing those queries is possible if you've structured your data such that the time frames are defined within your data set. But temporal tables will help to automate that process will make it possible to avoid the application development layer need to provide that solution, and write a lot of queries that involve, before this, after this date, but before this date. And that is one of the primary benefits that I see for using it.
All right. Would you have any idea about the pricing models for Pyramid Analytics Server?
I am sorry, I do not know that. In my role as a principal consultant, I usually have a salesperson by my side, and they generally answer that question. So I will see if I can get a reference for that too when we're posting the slides.
Okay. Will databases in SQL Server 2016 be backwards compatible with any other version of SQL Server?
So that you could, say, restore them back.
Yes.
I do not know that. I will find out.
That was the last question. So I guess we'll go ahead and end it today. So thank you everybody for joining us. As always, you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording. Rachel is going to email me the PowerPoint presentation, so if you're interested in that, please email me, Liz, and I'll be happy to forward that along. If you think of any questions after the session is over, you can email me, Liz, and I'll be happy to forward them to Rachel, or you can email Rachel directly. Her email is up there on the screen. So thanks, everybody, and enjoy the long weekend. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, and thank you very much, Liz.
No problem.
Bye-bye now.